Mr. Auditor, would you do a roll call, please?
Mr. Loudonell,
Here.
Ms. Halseth, Ms. Wagner,
Here.
Mr. Thacker,
Here.
Ms. Thies,
Here.
Mr. Norris, Mr. Thompson.
So Mr. Norris told me he would not be able to make it tonight, so we'll go ahead and proceed on. First thing we have here after roll call is public comment. So at this time, if you have a public comment, please come up, state your name, and go ahead and speak. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Jason Gibbons. I live at 2256 Park Street in Terre Haute, Indiana. I'm the instructor and very proud sponsor of the engineering class at Terre Haute North that we'll be presenting to you tonight. And I hopefully the presentation does well because this is their end of their 9 weeks and you guys are going to help give them their grade. I just want to let you know that.
Did we grade on appearance as well?
Yeah, yes, sir, definitely.
I see a couple got hats on.
No, they're not presenting. Owen got his haircut for it though.
No, if you're not presenting, you don't have to, you can take, wear a hat on. Go ahead.
All right, hi, I'm Owen Martin. I'm a junior at Terre Haute North, and today I'm going to be presenting our Winds of the Wabash project that we've been working on for the past 9 weeks. And so the reasons why that we chose this project is because we want to completely offset the county's electricity bill, and we figured this is the best project for us to be able to do that with. And it's just more efficient than regular wind turbines, and it works with lower winds. And how are we going to do this? We're going to utilize local construction companies and obviously hopefully get local support from you guys. And and where are we going to do this on? Hopefully on county lands, because our goal while we're here is to ask to build a prototype on county lands, and it could be anywhere, any parks, any open areas, anywhere where it's available. And the cost, it's going to offset $750 per kilowatt of energy produced, and Terre Haute uses 1.5 million megawatts of energy. And then for our construction, what we do differently than the regular one is we use the Lilly impeller, which it works better because it's based off nature and like a vortex from nature. And wind is directed through the tunnel and squeezed down in the Venturi effect, which causes it to spin.
Looks like a comic.
And the advantages and why we should choose this project instead of per se others is obviously it'll help us save money on the electricity bill, which could lead to more money other places, and it'll bring businesses here, which will create more jobs, and building these will create more jobs, and it's a lot more environmental friendly than choosing a regular wind turbine because it doesn't emit noise, unlike regular wind turbines, which have shown sleep effects. And it also doesn't kill any birds because the Lilly impeller is bird safe. Oh yes. Also, we used ionic breeze, which is a second way for us to get power from it, which is it's like a ground battery. I don't know how else to describe it. questions.
How can I get some of this electricity?
Well,
Because I want some.
hopefully we can build enough of them to where we can get to that point. But our first goal is to build enough so that way it just offsets the county's electricity bill.
This is somebody else who wants some.
And I spent 39 years as an electrician, so I was wondering what can you generate per tube per 80 foot? And what size diameter of piping are you using? Okay.
So it's basically 70 feet in there. The jury's down to 10 foot aperture, and then a large enough propeller you can generate over
1 megawatt? Okay. What's the cost for a megawatt?
$700 per kilowatt.
That's what I thought.
$7,500.
Okay. And how many are you guys looking to?
One to prototype.
One?
That's just all.
Then hopefully those will help jump in and go, this is a really good idea.
And where'd you get your research to base the calculations from?
From the Invelox website, which is the company that makes these, which is out of like the Twin City area in Minnesota.
And we made modifications to the design. These kids are really smart, and they come up with better ideas than what's going on in there. So basically, you're taking the window that's 200 feet in the air, you bring it down to the ground, you just stick tubes in the air, down the air.
Do you have to have a grand open space in order to capture that? You don't.
No, you don't need like a super open space. The one that's already in Minnesota, it's in like surrounded by homes, and it's just like in an area, like right in the middle.
So basically, Owen, you guys just need a place to put it? Is that kind of
Yeah,
what we're at now?
We just want to build a prototype, so
Okay.
that way hopefully we can get some other companies to step in.
What will it look like from, like, if I'm just walking down a park and I see it? Will it just be that outer part?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
How much,
In the Netherlands, they build them like, they look like little buildings, and everything is under the ground. All that tube that bends under, won't see. You can make the outer of that look any way you want.
how much money do you need to do it?
We haven't looked at that yet.
Just ask permission, go forward.
It's
Well,
so Google.
I think they know them. I actually have most of these guys in class really proud of you guys, and it's some really, really cool work, so.
Any more questions?
So the turbine's gonna be in the Ventura, the Lilly propeller's gonna be in there, then you're gonna have those.
Driving a turbine.
And
Yeah.
the turbine's gonna be located in the pipe as well?
Yes.
And then you're still gonna have to look to tie to the grid at some point.
Right, but
So
first
you-
we're gonna go with battery.
Oh, you're gonna go with batteries
Check,
first?
see if it works, how much power we can actually generate,
Okay.
because our modifications have not been done anywhere else.
Because when we did our solar at our office, we then did a net metering agreement with Duke. So I would think that if you guys would partner with somebody who could facilitate with the net metering and have that opportunity to do it, so you could and those, but they have smart meters, which they would log all the recording of what you produce and what you use, so.
We were just asking permission, because you guys have all the.
I think President Thacker has just volunteered himself to be a guest speaker for your class, so I'm just saying, I might even buy him lunch one day at school.
So yeah, I think that, I don't see there's an issue with it. We would have, of course, talk with legal, what we have to do with that. But, so I think with this being our this beginning meeting of the month, we would bring it up as a proposal, then we'll act on it at the next meeting next week. So this meeting is just for discussion, so if you're doing a great job on that, and then we would take action at our next meeting, and in between, we could talk to legal to see if there's any issues.
It would warrant some more questions, just, I mean, if it is a parks department doing that
Yeah.
excuse me, the Parks Board would actually be the one to have to
Right.
make that decision, so but it's definitely worth studying further.
If it was other property that's not parks,
I
like where
think
it's
even
not
if
as public.
any property falls under the purview of the commissioners.
Yes.
In my opinion, so, I don't think that unless it were some sort of proposal to buy something for that project, I would put that in your purview as the council, but for projects on property, it
Yeah.
would be more the commissioners
think-
or the park
Yeah.
board.
Yeah, both of those.
When do you guys wanna start this? Is this something we're trying to get done by the end of the year, or just whenever you're ready?
Whatever.
Okay. Well, just keep me posted, you guys know where to find me, so.
Yeah, and then, well, I would hope that somebody, or not all of you, but you're all welcome to come to the next meeting, and we can, by that time, have some answers for you, and then we could entertain a motion and take action on it at the next meeting. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
President Thacker, members of the Vigo County Board. I'm Joseph Shackelford. I'm the chairman of the Honey Creek Fire Protection District. I'm here tonight to try to not only influence, but inform the county commissioner, county council, of ongoing situation. As chairman of the Honey Creek Fire Protection District trustees and representing our contractor, the Honey Creek Department of Fire and Rescue Services Incorporated, I am here to express our concern regarding any future 100% tax abatements granted to new industrial park tenants. The current Fire Protection District tax rate is 33 cents per $100 of assessed valuation. If 100% abatement is granted, the district cannot collect those tax monies for 10 years. If a 100% abatement is granted also, the new tenants, 2 new tenants, existing tenants are then forced to absorb all of the costs for fire and rescue services in the entire industrial park complex. A recent abatement to Steel Dynamics Incorporated for a $325 million investment would have generated $107,250 a year for the Honey Creek Fire Protection District. Obviously, that cannot be collected. That is gone by. A proposed new tenant is being considered with a reported $1 billion investment and over 600 employees. This investment will be a great asset to Vigo County and the surrounding areas. If a 100% tax abatement for this proposed new project was granted, the tax revenue for the fire district would have been $330,000 a year. Over 10 years, you know what we're looking at. We respectfully request the county council not abate any further or any future fire protection district taxes to help ensure the necessary resources are available to protect the investment the new tenant will make, both in terms of personnel and property. The district and the fire department are dedicated to providing the level of service required to retain existing tenants and attract future new investments in the industrial park. We cannot maintain this standard of service without your continued support. I'll be available for questions after the meeting if anybody has any. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment at this time? If there's not any other public comment, I would ask for elected officials or other officers or other agencies of the county. So, Chris, yep, okay.
I'm Sherry Kelly. I'm the current drug court coordinator for Vigo County Drug Court.
Sure.
I just came to speak with you all today to give you an update on the status of the Vigo County Drug Court program, and also hopefully to discuss what the future of of our program is going to be, and the sustainability of our program. Currently, our program is funded by a SAMHSA grant that was it's currently in our 5th year. It was a 5-year grant. That grant will run out September of this year of 2023. We also, we have been eligible for state grant funding through Indiana Office of Court Services, the Problem Solving Court grant, which we were unable to collect last year and the year prior. I believe that ran out in we had an extension into 2021 due to overturn at the state level, as well as with our county level. Funds just kind of became stagnant. Application process we thought was not completed by the previous coordinator. However, it was. IOCS, however, made no determination on that grant funding. So we missed out on $10,000 over the last 2 years for that funding. But we were able to recoup the remaining funds from 2021 and utilize that for our program. We also were able to have some county funding. Last year we received $100,000 from the county, and this year that was cut in half to $50,000. We've been able to make do with that money currently because of our SAMHSA grant. However, like I mentioned, our SAMHSA grant will run out in September. So I wanted to provide the council with an update of what funding we are currently applying for, where we stand on that, as well as to discuss with you, like I mentioned, the sustainability of our program and what that would look like for the county at a cost. So I just want to give you a little brief background on Vigo County Drug Court. I don't know if any of you are aware, but Vigo County Drug Court was actually one of the first drug courts in the state of Indiana. It became a drug court in 1996, actually. We were officially certified as a certified drug court May of 2004 by the Indiana Judicial Center. Our program targets nonviolent, high-risk, high-need individuals. These are individuals who have, most of them have been incarcerated at some point or another, have reoffended, or maybe have reoffended multiple times and never received the treatment that they needed. Our drug courts use a course of authority, bringing together the criminal judicial system as well as resources in our treatment programs. This is in lieu of incarceration. So linking these two resources, both our judicial system and our treatment systems, has proven to be effective in increasing participation by individuals in treatment, as well as reducing recidivism as a whole. What we are able to provide as a drug court, we provide case management services. We have 2 case managers currently. Per our SAMHSA grant, we were supposed to have 4. We've been operating on 2 successfully, as well as myself, at some points carrying a full caseload. During that, we provide obviously one-on-one guidance to our participants in helping them with housing, referrals to appropriate treatment. We monitor that treatment. We also help them overcome any systematical barriers that they may have, whether that be transportation, living in a rural area without phone service, maybe they've never applied for a job, maybe they don't know how to complete a resume. We help with all of those things. Our participants are required to complete either community service or a community give back project. This year, some of you folks were nice enough to donate to 2 of our participants that did major community give back services. One was giving items to the homeless because he himself had been homeless. He had no job, knew that he was going to die either on the streets or from an overdose. He now has a job, he has a truck, he has insurance, he has a home, and now he is a taxpayer. So our goal is to get people back to being productive citizens within our community if they aren't already. We also, as I mentioned, during this community service, we supervise that community service as Community Corrections no longer provides that service. They haven't, in my knowledge, for a while, for our participants anyway. So not only do we help them locate the service, but then we also monitor that service out in the community. We also provide drug screening, and it is a random, very strenuous drug screening that our participants go through on average 10 times a month, that they are responsible for the cost of that screen. We currently charge $15 per screen, and our participants pay for those screens, so $150 a month on top of their drug court fees. Some of those screens are probationers. We have to now absorb those costs because community corrections no longer will screen probationers. That has come with its own set of challenges, but drug court has met every single one of those challenges. We also provide court status hearings for our participants so we can check in on their progress and incentivize them for the hard work that they're doing. That has proven to be effective. What we see is that the more that we incentivize our participants, the better that they do, the more that they strive to maintain recovery. Recovery being the long-term goal. So to kind of tell you just exactly where we're at as far as financially currently, like I mentioned, we have our SAMHSA grant that runs out. We were awarded $251,000 for this year. And I can break that up into salaries and such. I just want to remind you that those salaries are, they contain 2 additional employees that we don't have. So then we did not have a state grant from last year. However, we have applied for one for this year. That is pending. We collect $950 per user or per participant user fee. We had challenges with that were brought up in our last council budget meeting, and I would like to address any questions you may have with that. There were errors found on a processing of payments through the clerk's office, human errors. It's not a perfect science, but we have brainstormed as a team on solutions to how we can better be more effective at making sure those payments are collected and put into the appropriation for drug court. We received this year a charitable donation from First Financial Bank. It was a charitable grant of $1,000. That goes towards incentives and graduation gifts for our participants. There's also a community grant that we're applying for that's currently a $10,000 grant that is also in process. We were also included in the KC Chances for Youth block grant, and we're waiting on the results of that. So that's just kind of a financial overview of where we stand. I wanted to discuss with you how much it would cost should the county need to sustain or help us sustain our program in the event that grants are not available. We can apply for grants, but we're not guaranteed grants. These grants that I've mentioned to you, most of these are grants that are there to enhance the program, to add something to the program. We have already utilized the grants that get the program up and running. The grant people are saying, hey, how are you going to sustain your program? Where's your county support? And our county is saying, hey, how many grants can you apply? Because we don't have really a lot of money to support you. So with that, I currently have a salary of $45,000. That is based off of what we collect for your user fees, and the county supplements that. If I reduce my salary to $40,000 and we maintain the 2 case managers that we currently have and add no further case managers, and estimating that each case manager made $40,000 a year, so that would be 3 employees, we would have salaries of $120,000. We would have Social Security and FICA of $9,180, PERF of $17,040, and insurance, assuming that every person would need family insurance, that not always being the case, but assuming that at $87,669, our current payroll would be $889 a year. The other cost that we would
Say that again.
Oh, I'm sorry, $2,333,889 per year. The other expenses that we would oh, I'm sorry, 233,000? I'm so sorry. Anyway, the other funding that we would need to incorporate into that would be our current rent of the building that we have, which is $30,626 a year. Our utilities on average $5,000 a year. Supply cost of $2,000 a year. We have a copy machine rental of $1,500 a year. And then travel and mileage, which would include all of our training, for $5,000 a year. I came up with a total of $278,015. With that, I just want to remind the council that on average, to incarcerate an individual, and most of our individuals are level 6 felonies and higher, for our county jail, it would be approximately $1,000, if not more, a month for incarceration. The other alternatives that we offer is community corrections, work release, and dual diagnosis, all of which are still they're all incarceration. We have an average participation rate right now of 50 participants. We can take up to 60 per year, which gives us at any given time anywhere between 60 to 90 participants on average per year. But if we look at incarceration and the cost of incarceration for our taxpayers, at 50 participants, let's just say, that's $600,000 a year. Drug court is a fraction of that, and we're providing treatment for long-term recovery. Another statistics I would like to present you with is that for every dollar that is spent towards treatment, towards a treatment court, drug court, family recovery court, juvenile drug court, you save taxpayers between $3 and $12 for every dollar that's invested into one of our programs. Statistics also have shown that nationally, 75% of all drug court graduates remain arrest-free 2 years after they have graduated our program or left our program. That is based on whether they graduate successfully or not. The statistics show that they don't tend to pick up a new drug-related offense. I'm more than happy to answer any of the clarification questions for you. I know that there were some in the past meeting, such as what would happen if there was no drug court. I would love to address those concerns. Any questions you have about the rental of our building, I'd love to answer those the best I can.
David?
I think in the budget meetings, the funding was cut because of lack of user fees at the time. You say you've got that corrected?
I don't have it corrected, but what I do have is we have came up with some viable solutions on how to correct that. A lot of the errors that were happening are human errors. What was happening is when a drug court participant goes into the clerk's office to pay their fees, they often have more than one cause number. Their cause numbers have been transferred from other divisions. So you may have somebody out of Division 1, Division 4, etc. When they go into the clerk's office, no matter how many times we tell them this is the cause number that you've entered our program under, they will go into the clerk's office and say, I want to pay all my fees. When you say that, they go from your oldest cause number forward. That can include public defender fees, that can include probation fees, and those fees were being rerouted to other locations. Another problem that we had was that some of our participants were being assessed drug and alcohol fees, and as you know, we don't have a drug and alcohol program anymore. That is a completely separate account from us. We were told that we may be able to gain access to those funds. We have not yet. So in effort to try to resolve this issue, drug court is going to provide our participants as they enter our program, and even those that are currently in our program that have not paid off their fees completely, kind of like how you receive a payment book for your car payment, we're going to give them a printout for month by month what they should be paying, because we have budgeted our participants at $50 a month over 18 months. So with that, give them a coupon book that has to be signed or stamped by the clerk's office that they bring back to us. That will let us know that, hey, they made their payment, they can phase up, or they're eligible for those, incentives. That way we can ensure that those fees are going, or help ensure those fees are going to the right cause number. Last month we were able to collect over $3,000, so I think we've shown an improvement in that area. The drug court user fees are capped. Those are state mandated. We can charge what we can charge. We're at the max. Our program will never be a program that produces revenue, but we will produce more than revenue. We'll produce, hopefully, citizens that can give back to the community.
Any other questions?
Do you know?
Go ahead.
Do you know how many offenders have been through there so far this year?
This year, I'm actually working on those numbers for our performance measures. I believe we've had over, I want to say between 70 and 80 participants that came through the program. We're at a 53% graduation rate. We've had this last 6 months, we've had more participants that had to leave our program than normal for extenuating circumstances. A couple of them voluntarily left. That's unfortunate. However, overall, our participants, or I'm sorry, our graduation rate is at 53%.
And then, last question I have for you, how much longer is your lease for?
I believe our lease, when we were in our last meeting, is still 2026. So drug court's grant, like I said, ends this year in 2023. There will still be approximately 3 years left on that lease. That lease is also shared by vet court. I'm not sure that anybody's been aware of that vet court also occupies that space and does not, up until recently, did not pay for any of that space. And then they added on space to where we are currently at. So they have their own rent on top of utilizing the space that we occupy as well. We share community reception area, conference room, bathrooms, and kitchen.
And the last one's for the auditor's office. I think we talked about the drug and alcohol account. What did we decide on that? I thought we were going to, is there still money in the account?
The next step, take a resolution from you to declare it dormant.
Do we know how much money's in that account? So a resolution from the council to,
For a dormant, it would have to be put back, appropriate.
from there to, okay.
And we can have that, if that's what, we get that information, we can put that on the agenda for the next meeting, I believe. Anybody else have a question for us? Councilman Loudon.
So you say that you're doing better, making strides at better collection rates. Do you know what your collection rate is at this point?
Like I said, looking at February's clerk, we took in $3,000. A lot of our participants have actually paid in full, so I would need to get a full account balance of everybody that's paid, that's currently in our program. But I think $3,000, whereas before, I know we've collected as little as like $50. So we have definitely made great strides in getting people ironed out on how to pay at the clerk's office and getting the clerk's office to work with us. When those funds go into a different appropriation or account, it can't come back. So last year we had a gentleman graduate, he paid his entire $950 into the wrong cause number. We couldn't get that back. It went to the county, just not under our fund. So that is something that we are definitely trying to find more creative ways to stay on top of when our folks are going over to the clerk's office and making their payments. How can we track that on our end to ensure that they're getting the right cause number, that they're getting a receipt for that we can go back and track that? Because I think that was lost somewhere throughout this whole program. It was just assumed that people were going to go over there and know their cause number or say that that they have their cause number, and we all know that I can ask anybody to do something, and what they actually end up doing are two different things. So I think having a payment coupon book that will depend on whether or not they can actually phase up in our program is going to help them know that, hey, I have to be accountable for this cause number.
I think you said the graduation, that's easy for me to say, graduation rate was 50%?
53%.
53%?
That was as
What's
of
the national average? Is it right around the same, or how are we
That
doing
depends.
compared?
That depends county to county, and I would have to research each county. I know that leading counties in the state of Indiana are Grant County, St. Joe. They have really great programs. Knox County has a really great program. I also need to remind you that we also take transfers from other county. We have participants from Sullivan County. We have participants from Knox County actually right now. So those fees come to us and not their county. I don't know statistically what that would be per Indiana average, but I can speak to us because every year we have to do a performance measure for the state.
Where do we fall in that matrix, though? Are we in the middle? Are we towards the top?
I would
end?
have
Do
to,
you
I
have
would
any
have to
idea?
ask
No
them.
idea?
I don't know. They don't give us that. In 2007, a outside agency did a research study on Vigo County, and one of the things that they had mentioned was that we were meeting all of the the stipulations of being a drug court, mostly by recidivism, that we were showing that our recidivism rate was drastically lower than that of somebody on probation or that was incarcerated and not receiving treatment. I believe at that time it was 13%. National average, it says that the studies have shown that, I think I told you, the 75% of all drug court graduates remain arrest-free for 2 years. 60 to 80% of drug abuser, of people that are drug abusers commit new crimes, and typically drug-related offenses right after the release from jail or prison if they don't have treatment intervention. So treatment course as a whole is just, it's imperative for our community, and our community is at a pandemic with drug abuse. We are facing a serious problem. I believe when I got the jail stats, I got those a couple weeks ago. Just in that 3-month period, we had 96 level 6 felonies that came through that were drug related.
Anyone else have a question, comment?
I just want to thank you for coming today, because that was one of the
Thank you.
things we talked about at the budget hearing, just to give us updates
Yes.
and see how things were going. So I appreciate, you coming and sharing that. And just kind of keep us posted on the collecting of fees and where we're going. I think, obviously, the more resources we have for families and for people going through this, and I agree, you can use the word epidemic of it, because it's everywhere, the better. So just,
Thank you.
I appreciate what you guys are doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would agree with that, and thank you for your time, and we'll be, sadly, we'll probably be seeing you with the budget time, because it looks like our state officials probably won't be giving us more funding for the
Right.
things that we need for. And that's kind of been the theme that we've had to deal with. They've kicked a lot of it back here on the counties, haven't they?
Right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, so I know we have other elected officials that want to talk to us. Chris?
Council President Thacker, members of the council, I thought you said we were going to be out here by 6:30. Doesn't look that way.
Well,
Which is awesome.
you can help or hurt that.
So tonight, I have Rachel Leslie from RJL Solutions with me. We're going to respectfully request a resolution of support from the council next Tuesday for us to move forward and engage in contracts and negotiations with potential ARPA recipients. So I'm going to give her 5 or 10 minutes here to discuss what those steps look like, and then I have one more thing for you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Schweitzer. And members of the council, thank you for allowing me to be here this evening. Rachel Leslie with RJO Solutions, and I have the opportunity working with the county commissioners, and in some cases, each of you on various projects for the county, so thank you again. President, with your permission, I have something that might be helpful for communication.
Sure.
Do you mind if I pass it out?
That's
Thank you.
yeah, awesome. Watch your step. Oh, yeah.
You can just take it and we'll pass it down.
We'll make it easy for you. Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you.
Okay, at the commissioner's request, I'm here this evening to discuss if and when the council does approve or give grace to the plan that's before you, what that plan of action looks like for those stakeholders that are represented in that plan. So in front of you is what that will look like, how the stakeholders will navigate the processes moving forward. First and foremost, at your request and the commissioner's hope, that the council does agree to allow the commissioners to begin working with the project stakeholders that are in the current ARPA plan and strategy. At that time, at your approval, they would like to engage with the project stakeholders and allowing us to communicate with the stakeholders regarding future meeting dates and attendance expectations with a single point of contact. Because there are a lot of moving parts, that will be an important part of this process, making sure that future dates are set and that each of you have an opportunity to attend those meetings if you would like. Many of these conversations, including the educational seminar, will be public meetings. 3, host an educational seminar on the processes, procedures, and requirements that's put in place. So each project stakeholder will be required to prepare a plan, including a timeline, a budget, and sign a sub-recipient agreement with the county. At that time, each of you will have an opportunity to address any questions that you might have in regards to that plan. Host an educational seminar on those processes, procedures, and requirements, and allowing the stakeholders to understand what that plan needs to look like and include, what the expectations of the timeline look like to make sure we're meeting those ARPA timeline expectations, preparing a budget for your approval, and again, understanding what that sub-recipient agreement will look like. So go into detail in each of those manners, or each of those items. Commissioners also, and I included this because I think it's important, they keep saying it behind closed doors, and I want to say it for all to hear, they want to encourage use of local businesses and contractors in this process, including what that might look like from an ARPA standard standpoint. At that point in time, the project stakeholders will present to each of you. They will be put on an agenda moving forward in one of these particular meetings, allowing you a week to address any questions that you might have and then vote on that particular appropriation per project. So if you have any questions about any of the items that are on that particular agenda now or that ARPA proposal now, you will have an opportunity to address each of those stakeholders as such at that time. So each of those appropriations will happen individually. There might be more than one that happen on any given night, depending how long you want to meet on that particular night, but you will have an opportunity to do that at that time. The overall project appropriation will be done by each of you and then go back to the commissioners for appropriations from there moving forward. Pending the council approval, the appropriation will be available and the work will then begin with the project stakeholders, including with the help of Baker Tilly. It will be very important that Baker Tilly is a part of that particular process to make sure that the guidelines for ARPA standards are met and making sure that the project can in fact be ARPA eligible. That will be important in confirming compliance, and it will also be important to make sure if there are any additional questions that the commissioners have at that time, those can be addressed. Any secondary appropriations that will occur at that point in time from the stakeholders will also be included in those secondary questions. What does that mean? The secondary appropriations, including the disbursements that will take place regarding each project, which is likely to include multiple disbursements for each individual project, will happen accordingly. So what I mean by that is this council will appropriate, for example, let's say $5 million to housing to an entity that will be managing that particular appropriation. So at that particular time, that group will be working with Baker Tilly to make sure the projects that come through that process are ARPA compliant, okay? And that process will have its own separate process within itself. So each of these, after leaving the council's purview, will have additional processes thereafter to make sure compliance with ARPA is met accordingly. In addition, project stakeholders will communicate with the county on any events, celebrations, and announcements surrounding the project milestones. We believe it's important that each of you are a part of those processes moving forward. So when we have the ribbon cuttings, the groundbreakings, the exciting things in regards to these projects, we want to make sure that not only you, the commissioners, and other government stakeholders are a part of those conversations and opportunities to celebrate, but also the public and the community at hand. So as you can see, beyond just agreeing to the plan itself, there are many things that have to happen in this process. And I'm looking at the auditor's office. They will also be working, I want to give them kudos, in direct coordination with Baker Tilly in these processes to make sure that the compliance is met. So truly, although there's been a lot of work that's gone into this 9 or 12-month process, the true work, the hard work, really has just begun. So I'm happy to address any questions that you have on the process, or anything else that you might have for me at this time.
Anyone have a question this time?
I wanted to say, if anybody else had a question, I appreciate this plan of action so we have a better understanding what it is that we're looking to do and what they're asking for. So I think this will clear up a lot of it. I did have myself, I made a note earlier, fees for assisting in this with Baker Tilly or RJ Solutions, are they able to be paid out of this ARPA fund for those?
Yes.
I just thought that was something as I was going through this, because I don't know how anybody can navigate this legislation unless without some assistance. So I appreciate that as well.
Okay, I have a question.
So essentially from what I gather, and this is very helpful, I agree, as we look to next week, we are just really kind of approving those topics and those subjects to move forward. If something comes along, like, I'm just trying to think of one of the projects, where, especially some of the big ones, like the construction one, or, you know, with housing, that still has to go through another approval with us. Is that kind of what we're saying?
Yes, the
each
initial,
one?
yes, I appreciate that particular question, because that's an example of the contract, the sub-agreement. So, yes, you will have the initial opportunity to appropriate the large amount.
Okay.
Appropriations moving forward from there will go through a grants type of processing. And so if you have anything that you would like to add to that during that particular disbursement or that particular conversation, and you want that entity to answer any questions or address anything that you might have at that time, you will have an opportunity to do that.
That's in like stage 3 or 4. right?
Correct.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you.
And I do also want to address, and I said it, but just so you understand, the host educational seminar, that will be a public meeting. I encourage you all to attend that, because I think there'll be a lot of questions answered there as well, not just by us, but also our auditors team and also Baker Tilly at that time.
Anybody else have a question? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Commissioner Schweitzer had another point that he wanted to address.
Okay, so the Vigo County Commissioners have identified a possible location for Vigo County Dispatch and E911. That is the old former FBI building across the parking lot to the west of City Hall and the Vigo County Courthouse. We have met there a couple times. The auditor's office went there to see it. We've had some electrical engineering companies there. We've had Raycom, Edge IT, Tri-State Fire, Joink, Motorola, all kinds of people there to give us what does this building look like.
And I want to make sure everybody knows that there is a resolution here in front of you regarding that, and I added it to the agenda today. There was some confusion on what it was, and it didn't get in ahead of time, but I used the authority of being president to add this to the agenda. So you'll see that as resolution number 2023-05. So I just want to make sure they can follow along.
Yep, so of course before we make any or take any action, we have to get the appraisals, and then if we were to substantially make an offer, it would have to be the average of those two appraisals. So we're not saying we're purchasing the building right now, we're just saying that there's interest in that property, and we would like to see if we can engage into the appraisals and then potentially making an offer moving forward, of course coming back to you guys before we do that.
And so it's my understanding that by this being a resolution, then next week we will then vote on to approve or not this resolution to have the what was the word you just said?
Appraisals.
Oh, yes, appraisal. Thank you. To have the appraisal done. So that's what that is in front of you. So if you have any questions for Commissioner Schweitzer about that at this time, you guys feel free to ask.
Are there additional locations you're considering at this point?
We had a conversation at the 911 board meeting the other night about maybe community corrections, the second level or third level of that building. That whole group kind of said not a good idea because it's an enclosed area for safety purposes in case they had to escape or get out. It'd be pretty difficult to get in there. It is a secure location, but there were several instances that people brought up different concerns about the location being on that floor and stuff like that. Of course, there's still the option too of what happens with the old jail. Could it be there? Stuff like that. But I also wanted to reiterate the concern about drug court. We still have to remember as well, which this has nothing to do with this, but we do potentially have another court coming in Vigo County that we're going to have to find a location for as well. So maybe, Mr. Thompson, to your point, do we continue to pay that lease, or do we just build something for Vigo County or remodel something for Vigo County where we don't have that lease payment anymore and we have two additional courts? Well, I shouldn't say. We'll have one additional court, but another court in an area to be able to operate and maybe share the same space. So right now, this is kind of what we've identified. There's different sources of incomes that we could use to pay for this that will not include increasing taxation or anything like that. I think for maybe, I hesitate to say this, but maybe for $1 million investment, we could have a location for dispatch for the next 30, 40, or 50 years that won't have to be moved again. That particular location does not require any underground boring to the tower or anything like that. That's on the current Vigo County campus. All those things will remain. We just have to have a small satellite location or a tower with something facing that tower that's currently there. We did meet with Joink. Internet, of course, and having a redundant internet is also available and will be at a minimal cost, if any cost, for that location. So Jeff Fox has done a tremendous job with the sheriff's IT in organizing all these people to come there and give us their opinion, and we just identified that as, you know, potentially the #1 spot that won't require a big move.
Have you received any feedback from the dispatchers about that location?
Yeah, Vicky and Sarah Holbert, Vicky Oster and Sarah Holbert, both came with us to look at the location initially. Within that building, which that building will require, if somebody is going to purchase that building, it's going to be a specialized group. The walls, I swear, Councilman Loudermilk, are 2 feet thick, which I'm sure you're aware of. There's several offices in there, and there's a big space right in the middle that would fit perfectly for the dispatch desks that we just purchased. You guys funded the purchase, and for them to be moved over to that building. Of course, there was a little bit disdain because unfortunately we lost a police officer there at that location. You know, that's a tragic event. There was some talk about that, but other than that, not really, not too much. The feedback's been pretty good.
I guess from a functionality perspective, the building would work, but the situation that caused the closure of that building is the feedback that I've received that really bothers those employees.
Yep.
Just when it occurred there, and a reminder of every
Yep.
time they go to work.
Understand completely. And we're trying to give them a space too that had windows. It's difficult to find something like that right now without building something new. There are small windows in there. We've considered 75-inch TVs with flowers, trees, and stuff like that within the walls to give them a place. I mean, that's enjoyable. I mean, that job is a terrible job. You're meeting or talking to a person in probably the worst situation of their lives, and it takes a special person to have that job, and we're just trying to find them. You know, your concern, Mr. Loudermilk, is very valid.
It's a
and
very
we
hard
understand.
job, for sure.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
So with your permission, that's what we're requesting, just to move
Well, that,
forward.
it will be, I see Councilman Thies has a
So, just to
question.
clarify, this is just to look into the appraisal
Yeah,
process.
no,
This is
no
just
offers,
not-
no anything
okay.
like
Not a
that.
purchase.
What we need to be able to do as commissioners is engage with the lady that owns this, who is from Wyoming, I believe. Her and her husband bought it on a government website, and unfortunately, her husband has recently passed away, and she's looking to get rid of the building, but they have a $596,000 price tag on that building. So we have to get appraisals and see where we're
To
at.
see if it even qualifies in there. And location-wise, we've talked about like tower, perfect, because we don't want to move that.
So
It's
in the
expensive.
example of if the commissioners decide to remove that building or do something there, something would have to be built at the bottom of that tower. It's my understanding, after talking to Raycom and Motorola, this is nothing that's new. It would basically be a brick building that has air conditioning, heating, and stuff like that, just so some of those things that are in the basement of the jail could be moved in there. But everything else will just transfer over to the new building.
Yes, go ahead, Councilman.
What needs to be done to that? Is everything okay with it? I mean, the
Right
roof
now,
and-
there's no generator. It needs a generator. We've gotten some estimates, $50,000 to $75,000. It is a 3-phase, correct? Council President Thacker, I believe. Electricity-wise, everything's perfect. There's also already internet there. It seems like when the FBI moved out, they just took their equipment and cut lines. So there will have to be some running of new wires over the ceiling and stuff like that, but that's easily accessible, like the ceiling here. Maybe some minor paint work, probably new carpet. The building has sat empty for so long, it stunk really bad in there when we first walked in. We just believe because nobody's flushed toilets in a long time and stuff like that, but really, Councilman Thompson, I would say we're a 6 to 9 month renovation, if you want to call it that, and getting the generator hooked up and stuff like that, and I think we'll be able to move in there pretty quickly. Then I also want to add, there were some questions about what would happen to dispatch in the instance of a move. That move may take a week or so. Chief Keem with Terre Haute Police Department has been extremely gracious with allowing to use their facility in that instance if we need to. So there won't be any problems with dispatch ever not operating, if we get to that point, when we get to that point.
Everybody good? All right, thank you. And so like I said, that will be added to as a resolution in the next week's meeting. And I know one other one that we had is the auditor, Mr. Bramble, wanted to share some information with us that he was advised to do by the State Board of Accounts. Is that right?
Yeah, what I wanted to do was, give you the encumbrances at the end of last year, and they amounted to $3,513,852.14. The bulk of that was, in edit, $2,253,000 came from edit, and that was for, the large part of that was for, Community Crossings Grant, Spring Hill Project, and Clinton Road.
Yeah, he has a
Passed out
copy
some
for all of us,
copies
yeah.
for you. But
Thank you. That's right. Does anyone have any questions on that? As I had explained to me before the meeting, that this is something that the State Board of Council recommends that the auditor does. I attended the commissioners meeting. He did the same thing with this. It's nothing unusual, just something procedural, correct? Anybody have any questions for the auditor regarding income? Okay, so if we will then, I'll ask one last time, is there any other officials, agencies of the county, or elected officials that would like to comment at this time? Yeah, and you're saying that we were running long.
Done, I
Yeah.
promise. Yeah, sorry. We have announced today at the Commissioners meeting that the 14th of this month, we will have a determination or decision on Markle Mill Dam.
Oh, okay.
On how to move forward. Just wanted to reiterate that we have received a grant to take care of probably 50 to 60% of the demolition of the dam, if that's the route we choose to go. We also have applied for a second round of funding that would take care of another additional 30% of the grant. So if that's the route we go, we will be required to pay about 10% of the dam removal if we go. So the reason we want to make a decision quickly is that application process to get permitting and stuff, if that's the route we go, is about 6 months long. So probably July or August, we may come back to you for an additional request for that funding.
How much would that 10% be?
Vicki, a year ago, when we received the initial letter in 2021, after doing some due diligence, it was around $219,000 for the complete removal of the dam. Since then, I would assume that cost has probably gone up a little bit. I would say the county may be on the hook, loosely saying, for maybe $10,000 to $20,000.
Okay, you can sit down now, thank you.
Thank you for that information. So if I can, at this time, I would like to, it's on the agenda from council, update on the Baker Tilly study. So I'll start out with it. We've had 2 subcommittee meetings on that, consisting of myself, Councilman Thies and Councilman Thompson, which other council members attended as well. We had those at public meetings. We had discussions on what's going on with the Baker Tilly study at this point. So what we've gotten to is, we've gotten to a point where we elected to have a conversation and decided to share that with the department heads. So that was sent out to all the department heads, so everybody should have a copy, every department head should have a copy of the Baker Tilly study. And for total transparency, and then we have, today I received that it looked like they're looking at dates in April. And did we get a confirmation on that? We have not got a confirmation, but it looked like the confirmation the first week or second week of April that they would be here, and they were going to try to work with the CARO at the HR department. Will try to coordinate the people from the department heads that have questions for Baker Tilly, so we can schedule times, get everybody in front of them, tell them what they don't like about it, what's not right, you know. So the best way we thought to get that flushed out is, we've gone over this and looked at these number of times, and everybody, we find stuff, but we know that there's nobody who's gonna look at it with as fine as detail as the department heads. So that's why we've sent it out to the department heads. At that time, initially, we looked at, there was 56 people who are below low, but there was some concerns about if we raise those people up, does that cause some discrepancies and some problems with other ones? Or so we're looking at trying to do maybe it all at the same time. That's still up in the air. We haven't decided. So it has been a little bit of the chicken and the egg. We don't know exactly how much the impact is going to be or what we can do, but until we understand if everything's correct with the study. So, and it may come down to a time and budget, as everything else does, that when we decide we would like to do this, this is what it's going to cost, and can we afford to do that with the general fund, with each of the individual funds that this money has to come from. So that's why we know we have to incorporate this with the budget. And I would welcome any comment from anybody on council that's been involved with this process at this point to comment on it.
I just want you to know, we, in those meetings and trying to work, we're just trying to get it, is it gonna be 100%, make everyone happy, perfect? Probably not, but we are trying to get it as close to that as possible by having everyone comb over it before we approve it. And I think we would rather take an extra month or so to do that, to make sure it's right, rather than cram it through as is. And so, we're really close, and, I think just making sure that if you have any questions, as department chairs to take advantage of, meeting with them in April. Getting there, and keep us in the loop if you have any questions or concerns.
In the second subcommittee meeting, we had asked the auditor's department to give us some feedback of we had the cost of what Baker Tilly told us would be for the salaries, but we asked what would be the total impact cost. That was and if we're the financial body, we have to look at what's the total impact cost. And so with that, that's when we started looking at the numbers, and it looked like if we were trying to get everybody to the midpoint right now, and this is rounding a little bit, but it was $2.5 million to get everybody to that midpoint market, all departments, 2.5 million. And so we looked at there's a point that's a low point, and then there's an in-between point, then the midpoint. So that's and we shared that information with the department heads. We did not share any names on it, but we shared the positions. And we tried to focus on the second meeting. We're talking about what is the positions should pay, not what the person should be there, because but we got to factor all that in. Ultimately, we know we have people in those positions, but we're trying to make sure where do we compare the market numbers. And if anybody have any questions, I'd take them at this time. If not, we're gonna move on to the reading. Yep, yes, absolutely. Kara has been knee-deep in this.
One thing that we had talked about, and I didn't know if you wanted to mention, was the possibility of doing a market study for elected officials. Because of the situation of some people moving, it could be a problem with their elected official, and maybe we needed to do a market study so we know if they're where they belong.
Yeah, that is a point that we talked about in the second meeting, and I didn't reiterate. And we also did talk about this appeal process, and we talked about so that's why we got it out to them first. Yes, if it comes up that the market study is saying that we're going to be this for the chief deputies, for example, they did that, and where we have always been, it's 80% of the elected official. So that's something that we have to navigate. So we looked at the elected officials a couple years ago. We elected not to do that. That's never really a very popular thing to do, but because you're looking like Congress, you're voting on your own. But I look at it as I had somebody tell me is it's not what I would make, but the person that's going to run against me makes. So I think if we're really trying to do that, that's what we do.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to get in a spot where you're paying your chief deputies almost the same amount as your elected official.
Yes.
That's not going to be a good spot either, but then you don't want to hold your chief deputies down either. So
No, that's exactly.
I think it's something we have to consider, and of course, it would be more money, but we would have to
I think we have to
consider
look
doing
at that as a whole, as a thing too. And I guess Vicki shared with me here is, so if you're in a department and you're wanting to know we've asked these department heads to show some decorum and to try not to incite a riot, but be honest with their department heads. So that is up to each of the department heads have that information, and if you're an employee and you want to know what that says, ask them to see that. You know, it's not about trying to say, well, what's so-and-so making compared to me, but I think each person has the right to see what the study is saying too. And how can we get better on this? We have elected not to hide anything and to share it out, but we distribute it through the best method we knew how to, was the department heads. Is that covered?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just ask your department head to show it to you.
So, Mr. Bramble. Yes. Yes. And again, this is, and again, this is the information that you shared that was consistent with the State Board of Accounts. Is that what I understood? Oh, I thought you told me that. Okay, my bad.
Just keeps us from going crazy.
Okay. All right, then if everybody's ready for me to read to them for a little bit. So the first reading on record is a summary reference of proposed ordinance or resolutions. Resolutions of reallocation 2023-4 area planning out of service transfer. Number 2 is additional appropriation 2023-21 seized assets purchase of equipment. Number 3 is additional appropriation 2023-25 lit public safety mental health America. Number 4, additional appropriation 2023-26 ARP grant funds, culvert and drainage projects. These, so that is the first reading of those. And then we also have, I don't have any committees to report from, other than the one I just did with the Baker Tilly salary study. Then the resolution ordinance other than appropriation, we have a resolution of reallocation 2023-4 Vigo County area planning out of series transfer, and ordinance relating to appropriation. We don't have any on that. So old business. Now what we have under old business is, on the agenda, is everything that was tabled at the last meeting will come back up under an old business, and they'll have an opportunity, if there's somebody here that wants to speak on it, we will allow that. And if not, then we'll look at this under our agenda coming up next week. So the first one we have up under old business is, so that's one we do have to take action on. My bad. Thank you so much. So we do need to take action on that one. I was thinking it would fall under new business. That's my mistake. Okay, very good. So if we have anybody here that would like to speak on this one, is the resolution reallocation 2023-4 area planning. Okay. And that is on our page, I just saw it here a little bit ago, when I was reviewing it, is on our page 6. And Mr. Baylor?
Hey, good evening. Yes, Jared Baylor, Vigo County Area Planning. I first feel compelled to say that I feel that we are extremely blessed to have so many bright young minds in our community. And I'm for certain any one of those young people that we're here tonight were by far smarter than I will ever be. So
it wasn't us you were talking about, you were talking about...
Of course. of course. And secondly, I hope you don't grade me on my appearance either.
Well, you don't have a hat, so you're good.
Okay, good, thank you. The real reason I'm here this evening is this past December, we were advised that we could procure 2 iPads with keyboards and Apple Care service agreements under under funds that we could encumber under the service agreements line item, which was $39,200. And come February of this year, we're informed that those same funds that we had encumbered can no longer be utilized for their intended purpose, and that we must make the following request we place in front of you. And that was an out-of-series transfer for the following: $1,796 from service agreements, which is $39,200. Funds again were encumbered to new equipment, $44,510, for the already purchased and in service 2 iPads with keyboards and service agreements.
So fortunate here in county government, we can have a do-over.
Yes.
Yes, so,
Yes.
so with that being said, does anybody have any questions for this gentleman? If not, we will then take action on this next week.
Very good, thank you.
At the regular meeting. Okay, so thank you for Karen for straightening me out on that. Old business, then we'll go to salary ordinance 2023-02, ROC 2023-1, clerk salary increase. Anybody would like to speak on that this time? Salary ordinance 2023-3, ROC 2023-1, clerk delete of part-time position and adding of the full-time position. Anybody would like to speak on that this time? Okay, salary ordinance 2023-4, ROC 2023-1, election board salary increase. Anybody would like to speak on that this time? Salary ordinance 2023-5, ROC 2023-4, Juvenile Justice Center salary increase. Mr. Loudon.
Mr. President, members of the council, Norm Loudon, Executive Director of the Vigo County Juvenile Justice Center. I'm just here to answer any questions. If anybody had anything from the last time I was here, I'm not sure if everybody's here at that meeting, if they had any questions about what we're asking. This really has anything to do with the Baker Tilly study at all.
Well, and that it does, though. And in fact, if you've got the Baker Tilly study, it shows that you should be compensated the same as the people that you're asking for similar compensation, correct?
Yeah, there were a lot of things that needed to be fixed with that study as I looked at
Yeah,
it.
but to
But
support.
generally, the working people that work both in my facility and have similar positions with the sheriff's office were rated the same.
Right.
And so, you know.
And that was my point that I was
Yes.
saying, is that you were paid the same, and we made an adjustment for some individuals, and I can only speak for myself, is
Right.
I didn't realize that we had left somebody behind, and then with this new study, it comes out and says, yes, in fact, you guys have similar job descriptions, and your compensation should be at the similar rate as the ones that you requested.
Yeah, I think that when the council made the adjustment for the sheriff's department, their back was kind of against the wall with
You're
this lawsuit. So we never at that time expected anything to happen with us at that time. There was a sense of urgency to get the pay up so that more people would apply and we could fill those positions. And, you know, quite frankly, I understood that fully. But during the budget process, I would have hoped at that point we would have tried to have caught that up. And you know, but we weren't just left behind with salaries. There was a retention bonus that was given that we were not even thought of.
Yeah, and that's the second part here. If anybody would
Right.
have a question for that, that would be salary ordinance 2023-6, ROC 2023-4, Juvenile Justice Center stipend and retention bonus.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
while
I'm
you're
just here to
there,
answer any questions. If you have
Yeah.
none, then we'll see you next week.
If anybody has any questions, you can ask them this time. If not, we will take action or not at the next week meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Okay, this next one is the salary ordinance for 2023-7, ROC 2023-6, corner of the adding part-time chief deputy corner physician. Is there anybody here that would like to speak to that at this time?
Mr. President,
Yes.
I don't, not to speak on the issue, but one of the questions that was raised at the last meeting that I had no knowledge of prior to checking into it was whether or not there had ever been a chief deputy position in that office before. And somebody had indicated that Kevin Mays, a former Terre Haute City police officer, was a chief deputy. And I did in fact confirm that.
Okay.
That he was previously, but I do not believe, and he does not know for sure, but does not believe either, that his salary was 80% of the elected coroner's salary. He had more responsibility on the call-outs. There were other deputies who were responsible for attending to scenes where a coroner representative is necessary, and Kevin was essentially their boss.
Right.
You know, he made sure that there was always coverage. If there was no coverage, then he was the backstop. So, I just wanted to clarify that for the council's benefit.
Okay, appreciate that.
Yep.
Would anybody else have any comment or statement? Seeing nobody here from that department. Okay, let's talk about the number 7, additional appropriation 2023-7, ROC 2023-9, jail staff increase. Here, anybody wish to speak on that? Or number 8 is additional appropriation 2023-23, ROC 2023-9, sheriff staff increase, additional staff. I'm sorry, I said increase, additional staff.
I just wanted to make sure that the council was aware that this is from the positions that you did approve last month. That's what these additionals are for the rest of the year.
Say that again, please.
These are the additional appropriations that are required to be able to fund the positions for the rest of the year that you approved in last month's meeting.
Right, yeah, yes. So this is, then the next one is the salary ordinance 2023-11, ROC 2023-10, prosecutor amending prosecutor's base salary. Deputy prosecutor's base salary. And the prosecutor, Mr. Mazza.
Members of the council. Obviously, I've spoke on this twice, so I know you want to be out of here by 6:30.
No, that's.
I'm kidding.
We
I'm
always
kidding.
have, we're here for the business of the county.
We've provided a lot of information to the council as far as job openings throughout the state, and the starting pay levels. And as you know, we've got a problem. We've had 2 positions for deputy prosecutors open for over 14 months. We did finally get one of them filled. We've still got a spot that's been open now for about 16 months that we have not been able to fill. The base pay is $67,000. We're asking that be increased to $80,000 plus up to 10% depending on what position they would be put in. So that's kind of where we are. I don't know if the study, I have not received a study personally, so I don't know if it went to Rob or not. I was not able to talk to Rob today because I think I gave you guys a jury trial schedule we had for February. We had 69 jury trials scheduled, and we've only got, as you know, 13 full-time prosecutors counting Rob. We're in a murder trial right now this week again, so that's kind of what we're up against.
And at the same time, while Mr. Mossett's here, he mentioned there the salary ordinance 2023-12, ROC 2023-10, prosecutor, the adding prosecutor percentage. That's what he was talking about on that one, is where certain cases, violent crime was one, drug
Major
cases,
crimes
and
trial
sex.
deputy, yes.
So those were those additional ones that he talked about. And at the same, so if you can, while you're there, if anybody has any questions about those first 2, or would like to talk to Mr. Mossett about it, that would be the time. Not, if you don't mind staying there, we got a couple more there. Salary ordinance 2023-13, ROC 2023-10, prosecutor adding deputy prosecutor position. You would ask for 3. So I mean, you kind of touched on that, but if anybody else has any questions, and I do understand that if you have open positions, it's hard to ask for more when you can't fill the ones that you have. I do
Yeah,
You see
that's
it.
the dilemma. If we
Yes.
don't get the pay rate up, it doesn't matter how many deputies you guys give us. I mean, we're not gonna be able to fill the positions.
Does anybody have any questions, statement, comment? And then the next one is salary ordinance 2023-14 ROC 2023-10 prosecutor, adding 2 legal secretary positions.
Yeah, and as I discussed previously, one of those would be for a juvenile legal secretary, but the second one would be for a community service coordinator. As you know, the Community Corrections Board voted not to monitor community service any longer. There are certain criminal offenses, such as second offense, operating a vehicle while intoxicated, that require you either serve so many days in jail or you have to do so much community service. So right now, we're trying to monitor the best we can, but we don't have enough manpower to do it efficiently. So that's our hope, that we can get a spot to make sure that we can monitor community service going forward, so we don't have to eliminate it, because that's what you're going to be up against. Those people then will just have to serve their time in jail. They won't have an alternative.
Correct. Would anybody have any questions at this time? Of course, this is the time we can ask questions, so we can be able to make a decision at the next meeting. So does anybody else have any questions at this time? Okay, yes.
On, when you did the salary comparisons, and I apologize, it's been a month and a lot of meetings, are those deputy prosecutors, are they part-time positions as they are here? The ones that you were comparing, some of our,
The ones we were comparing were full-time positions,
full-time
2 full-time positions here.
okay.
So we were
it's-
comparing
so
apples
Kip,
to apples.
Okay,
Yes,
that's, I just wanted
yes.
to
And the s-
verify that.
And the
Okay.
spots we have open are full-time position. We had one part-time spot that we had not been able to fill either, by the way. But we ask you guys, as part of this proposal, to just eliminate that and use that money towards the full-time
Full-time.
spots we were requesting.
And those were with, counties that were similar size, similar caseloads?
Smaller counties paying
Smaller
more than
counties.
us. Vincennes just started out at 88,000.
I think we've all seen too that the state has not helped us in this case either, where they have now raised the attorneys that are work for DCS, and no different than what they've done with the law enforcement, where they've now paying the state troopers after they went through a period of time where they cut their numbers and cut their numbers and cut their numbers, and then now they brought the pay up. So, I mean, that's what we're dealing in reality. What we have to look at our competition, as well as you do when you're trying to recruit somebody from prosecute.
You know, the scary thing about it is we aren't even getting any applicants. And you are right, DCS is paying some of their attorneys 6 figures, now we're 100,000. We only have one attorney, including me, in our whole office, and that's Rob, that makes more than 100,000. Of course, I'm designated as part-time, but I make less than that also. So,
Okay, any other questions this time? Thank you.
thank you.
The last but not least, number 13, additional appropriation 2023-24 ROC 2023-11 juvenile court staff increase. Is anybody here that would like to speak on that? Okay, and we'll handle all of those issues will come before us next week. Under new business, we do have this, and this is a time when we can have people discussing the items up. Is for new business. Number 1, additional appropriation ordinance seized 2023-21 seized asset, new equipment. This is on page 8 of ours. Hey, would somebody yell for
He's standing.
Prosecutor Moss? I think he forgot he had to talk about this one.
President Thacker,
Yes.
just so you know, the juvenile court is also from the CASA employees.
Oh,
that
that's,
you-
so we just have to read it to approve it. Thank you.
Just for
We do have a new business there. If you'd like to speak about your request for additional appropriation of the seized assets that for new equipment, that,
you have your,
Is that, yeah.
yeah.
yeah. Well, Rob's slacking tonight, and so you're gonna pick up the slack, Terry.
Been in a murder trial, so.
It's on page 8 of our report there, where he's asked the appropriation for $65,000.
Yeah, these are requests, law enforcement requests that, normally our seized assets, that's what we try to use it for, is for equipment, or otherwise they'll be over here asking you guys for money too. So there's, some of this is for the sheriff's department and, then also for THPD. So we've bought out of seized asset vehicles, a little bit of everything that's been used, but obviously the law requires, even though that's money that we are able to seize through different raids and, you know, drug busts and those kind of things, that's solely what we use the money for, but we have to get your approval, how it should be spent.
So on this one, we will take action on it, but it is for a request for 65, of the appropriation for approximately $48,864 for the Terre Haute Police Department for equipment, and $16,000 for computer storage for the Vigo County Sheriff's Department.
And it's all money we have.
Yep, and it says here, these funds are generated through investigations and are not direct tax dollars.
Yes, that's correct.
Just wondered if anybody had any questions, or if you had anything you wanted to say at this point, so, okay? You got a question?
Is it typical for, and maybe somebody else can help this, but we're approving, funding for Terre Haute PD, is that typical since it's in there?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because it was specific to that, thank you.
You're good now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. The second one under new business is additional appropriation ordinance 2023-25, lit public safety, and it here from Mental Health America.
So, good evening. I'm not speaking on behalf of Mental Health America, but I want to kind of preface this a little bit. Myra and her team have a potential $14 million project in Vigo County. They're about $1 million short on funding. Councilman Loudermilk has been very vocal, and several others, about a diversion center. This $500,000 ask that she's requesting would fund that. And I want to be completely honest with you, Councilwoman Thies. During our first ARPA presentation, you had asked me a question about maybe funding some housing in the city, and I promised you that we would not do that. In this instance, which Myra's going to talk about, she's potentially talking about building 42 very low-income housing units, and her funding has fallen a little bit short on that as well. So this could be potentially $750,000 from the county. This certainly does qualify for ARPA. Councilwoman Thies, it meets the low-income threshold, it's housing, all those things. If we do make this request, which I believe she just will need a resolution of support from the commissioners, but this would come from outside of our $5 million bucket for housing that we have requested, if that makes sense. So with that said, I think Myra has a small presentation.
And for everyone, we have it here on page 9 of this document.
Good evening. My name is Myra Wilkie. I am the Chief Executive Officer for Mental Health America of West Central Indiana. Our consultant is with ALK Development, and her name is Andrea Kent. And we're just going to do a small presentation today on Mullen Flats and the Diversion Center. I did pass out some handouts. You should have a copy of the PowerPoint presentation, and you should also have a copy of the economic burden of untreated mental illness in Indiana. That was authored by Senator Mike Kreider, created through the Indiana Behavioral Health Commission. And I think of the entire report, I think it's important to note that the cost of untreated mental health in the state of Indiana is estimated to be $4.2 billion. And we have a lot of untreated mental health in our county. Of course, there's a lot of premature mortality with people who have untreated mental health. Their life expectancy is much, much shorter than yours or mine. That's valued at 1.4 billion. There's productivity losses, direct healthcare cost, and probably a lot of direct healthcare costs that is with uninsured folks. The folks that we serve have the highest rates of using up the emergency services. And I know Aaron knows a lot from being past president of the Mental Health America West Central Indiana Board, but our folks use the first responder system and the emergency departments like there's no business because they have nowhere else to go. In 2006, Mental Health America West Central Indiana created their first supportive housing development called Unity House. That project was so successful, we embarked on a second project, very similar but much larger, called Unity Village. After that project, the board felt the need to serve folks that were homeless and that were veterans. And with that, we created 30 more units, which is now called Liberty Village. Mullen Flats will sit directly to the west of Liberty Village. We'll share a parking space. That parking lot is huge. Our folks do not drive vehicles. They take the bus for transportation, they ride bicycles, they have mopeds, and so with the diversion center and even 42 units of space, that parking lot will be more than sufficient for what we need. I'm gonna let Andrea start the PowerPoint.
I'm not able to pull it up.
I think Terry did something when he was here.
It's on the lap. I think he put the actual PowerPoint on the laptop. Oh, it's up. It's just not showing up. I'll press every button on here and see what happens. It usually works at home. Yeah, like it's highlighted. I mean, we have the handouts. We can just go
If
from
you,
that.
if you exit out and come back in, I should be re-up it. I see it right there on the PowerPoint. Okay. Oh, yeah, there it is. Yep. She's clicking on it. Usually I had to get out and then get back in.
Sounds like it's up on hers. It's just not showing up on the screen.
I think let's just go off the. Anybody under the age of 20.
Is that what it is? Hard stop? Okay.
Yep.
Sure can.
So I just grabbed page 3.
Okay.
Page 2.
Yeah. All right, so you guys all have this handout. Again, my name is Andrea Kent with ALK Development. I am a co-developer on this project with Myra Wilkie. Myra and I have known each other for about 15 years and have co-developed, with the exception of Liberty House, the other two tax credit developments before. So excited to be back and doing more super awesome projects. You'll see page 1. These are our project partners. And I know
when the commissioner was up here saying proposed project, this project has been allocated low-income housing tax credits. So it's moving. It's a project that's moving forward. It's not proposed at this point. So all the funding's been secured, with the exception of our request. So the second page is just the project team. We can skip past that. Then the next page, page 3, just is Myra's projects to date. Kind of go. She's covered some of this. The site plan, as you see, she kind of referred, or she did refer to. So we've got Liberty Village there to the east, and then the parking lot. This is city-owned land. We've got that land under contract with the city. It's going to be a shared parking lot. We've got the variance in place for that, so it's good to go from that aspect. It will be 42 units of permanent supportive housing. The housing will be on floors 2 and 3, so it's a 3-story building in total. Individuals, they're all 1-bedroom units, and that to be able to be housed in this development, you've got to meet certain criteria, right? And so there's the dual diagnoses, so they'll be homeless with mental health and or addiction issues. So this is something Myra's organization is very familiar with. On the ground floor of that, if you go to the next page, this kind of lays out the ground floor. And so this is where I want to kind of talk about what the diversion center is. And so the diversion center will be a commercial component on the ground floor that's circled in red. So you'll see it's roughly 5,500 square feet. And I'll let Myra step here just a moment to kind of talk about the diversion center, what it's happening. But it's been interesting to kind of sit through this council meeting to hear, these issues, not just in your community, but just, all throughout the state of Indiana. To the north of that first floor is a common tenant space. There will be separate entrances into the building as well. So the tenants will have their own entrance up to the north, and then the diversion center you'll enter in from the south. And so even though it's located in obviously within city limits, the area and the folks that it's serving are well with outside the city limits. So Myra, you want to step in and talk about the diversion center?
So on page 6, the diversion center is all laid out there for you to view, but we've been working on this project for the past 3 years with a lot of community partners. The prosecutor's office, the sheriff's department, and Terre Haute PD, to come out with something that is reasonable and a way that we can divert folks with low-level crimes out of the justice system. Our folks who are dually diagnosed, and if you don't have a mental health background, that means that they have a mental health diagnosis and an addiction. And those folks, once they get into the justice system, they never get out. And we have proof of that in over 70 units. And their stories are all different, but how they got there, it all looks alike. And so through what we worked with United Way and law enforcement, is that we really need a place where people can come, where they can be diverted from the justice system and get appropriate treatment. And what that treatment may look like will be based on each individual's needs. We've always used a person-centered approach, and it's worked successfully so far. So as they come in the front door, which is where the vestibule is, law enforcement would bring them in there to the reception desk. They would check in. There's lockers directly to your left, and those lockers are for storage of mental health medications. They get lost. We've just seen a whole gamut of things happen, and people need secure locations for their medication. There's a lot of offices for for staff, case managers, housing navigators, employment services, care managers, that kind of thing, for on the treatment side. There are 3 telehealth rooms, because what we found out during the pandemic, our folks were not able to use telehealth. They don't have the technology or the expertise to do telehealth appointments. And so these rooms are essential for them to get much needed services. There's restrooms, there's day resource center where people can charge their phones, they can meet with people in the facility. There's a TV lounge where they can try to relax. There's laundry facility. There's crisis beds for people that are 45 days out from stable housing, and they can stay in those crisis beds. And then there's also medical with day sleeping and storage. The medical, so we've never integrated physical health and mental health together. And we will be able to do that in this facility for that reason, because if you've had experience with someone that's has a mental illness, the 2 entities do not talk, and there needs to be a continuity of services between physical health and mental health and the addiction piece. And we're going to do that holistically and get people all the services that they need right there. I guess I should say Next Step is in the partnership with us, Next Step Foundation. They started the program by creating the CLEAR program. And the CLEAR program right now is they get a call from law enforcement. They go to where the officer is with the individual, and the individual can go with them, or they can go with law enforcement or get a ticket to go back to court. And so that's worked very well so far in the initial stages. We all met for our first kind of roundtable meeting, and it was reported out that of the 9 people that were pulled over, 7 of them received the option of treatment and followed through. 7 people out of 9. People want treatment. I think for as long as I've known, it's been very difficult to get treatment. It's easier to continue your behaviors than to go through the system we have in place for treatment. So as Andrea said, Mullen Flats is 44,000 square feet, 3-story building, 42 units of permanent supportive housing. That project has a gap of $500,000 in construction. Because we're developing this before the pandemic, when we submitted for our grants, the cost has just gone up and up and up and up. So there's that gap there. I will say, though, that of the subcontractors, about 93% are union subcontractors for this project. The diversion center is 5,500 square feet, and it's located on the first floor. We'll maintain a master lease with that space. The build-out is not eligible for any grants that we have received. And if we do it simultaneously with Mullen Flats, if we create it simultaneously, we'll save about $500,000, making the build-out of the diversion center $500,000. So the total requested funds from both, total requested funds from the county council is $750,000. I'm going to let Andrea talk about sources and uses. and the schedule, because we do have deadlines and schedules that will impact us if we do not move forward.
Just to reiterate, I think really this page is what sums up the request, really. I tried to kind of do a good job of putting it on one page, and so we were in front of City Council last week asking them for a resolution of support. We understand where you guys are at in the process, and you're not able to do any sort of allocation or appropriation at this point. But we are wanting to get in on that process, or kind of understand how that process works and how we can potentially participate in it. The diversion center, that request, we would be looking to look for the public safety funds. And I'm looking on the agenda, and it says additional appropriation of funds.
So what we're asking for is $500,000 from public safety funds and $250 from ARPA. The city is willing to share the cost. We're working with City Council to share the cost, and they are going to match if you would allocate $250 with City Council would match $250 from the county.
Thank you. Is that?
Commissioner Schweitzer said that 250 would have to come from the commissioners, which is through the ARPA.
Correct.
Of the 400 million that's not yet been allocated. If we are able to come up with the 500,000 for public safety, lit public safety.
Okay. So I'll just run through the sources and uses real quick, just so you guys understand, how complex. I don't need to belabor the point, but with low-income housing tax credits, it does have an allocation of low-income housing tax credits. The project is just under 15 million. We've got National Housing Trust funds that are issued by the state, by Indiana Housing Community Development Authority, in the amount of $2 million. We've gotten a AHP grant from the Federal Home Loan Bank of Indianapolis for $500,000. We've got a member bank donation of $50,000, and here you can have the city and county requests in there. I added those in. The city of Terre Haute for $250, Vigo County $750. I just lumped those together just so you guys, for clarification. And then the deferred developer fee, which is the portion that we're putting back in the project. And then the uses, a breakdown of the uses. The land, like I said, it's city-owned land, so it's a nominal cost. The hard costs includes environmental remediation, because it's a former rail yard site. The diversion center build-out, there's $500,000. Soft costs, financing fees and interest. That's a big driver that's increased over the past year. We're roughly about $350,000 more in construction loan interest. We've got bridge loan fees. It keeps going up and up the longer we keep going. On the next, or the last slide that I want to share is just the schedule and kind of what we're up against. So you guys are aware, we have a purchase agreement with the city that expires April 7th. We're going to proceed with that closing and close on that financing. We're doing that to meet a tax credit deadline, where we have to expend 10% of the total development costs by June 14th. So we're really time constrained as far as when we can start construction, break ground. Construction's roughly going to be about 16 months. There's going to be a few months of remediation work. And I've got the building being operational at the end of August of 2024, and then 100% leased up by the end of 2025. So there's the deadlines if you want to reference it. I'll open it up to questions now.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Lattimore.
As Myra stated, I'm definitely a supporter of this project, have been for quite some time, but I guess the first thing that's glaring to me and stands out is the fact that there's a request for $750,000 from the county and only $250,000 from the city. And why would that be?
We had a meeting roughly two or 3 weeks ago with the mayor and commissioners, and talking about how to best fill that gap. And it was, at that meeting, it was discussed, the public safety funds would be a good fit for the diversion center build-out. So that's why the bulk of the ask is on the diversion center, and then city county splitting the housing request.
It's
That's
always
how
easy
it
to
was
spend-
derived.
It's always easy to spend somebody else's money. I like the city spending the
but they-
county's money.
It's easy, yeah, it's,
They too get public safety funds. It seems as though the history of these projects, the county always does the heavy lifting for the city.
And, you know, that's not a reflection on you.
No, it's-
The only thing
it's
I
fair.
would like to see is, I understand you said that you had the support, and that you have. It would be nice when you come back if you have those documented, the support for those different entities, the prosecutors, the sheriffs, the jail, whatever, you know, that, it's always good to see it. I like to see it as well as hear it. So that's for me. I think it's a great opportunity here, and relatively speaking, 500,000 is a small part of a $14.7 million project. I do understand that, you know, and I think if we have an opportunity here, if we don't do it, which we don't love it when we get stuff at the last minute, and we have to react on it, but that's the process that we're here, and so that's what we have to deal with. I understand that. So, I mean, but if anybody else would like to speak, Councilman Wager.
Question, diversion center, Myra, these folks, they're not coming to you from the courts or anything, right? They have the opportunity, like, if they get picked up, say, you know, the officers pick them up, they make the determination, they can come to you or go to jail. They have to make that point. We can't send them to you, right?
No.
Okay.
The whole point is to divert them from
Away
ever
from the system, not.
away from the system.
Got it. Okay.
We can't do that completely because,
Because of grant.
Rob can talk about it a little more. There's,
Yeah, because of
Aaron
the
or
grant
David may know.
ramifications.
No, there's a legality in it. And so some people do have to go, to the courts. However, law enforcement and the prosecutor's office does have some leeway to either not arrest or to, not file charges.
That has to be done before they can't take them?
No, Rob can take that into, or, Mr. Modisett can take that into consideration. And so what would happen in those cases is that people would say, I want to do treatment. They would do treatment. We would probably, do a roundtable, report back to the prosecutor's office that, they've been compliant. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing. And then he would take all those things into consideration as to not to file charges. So they would still have some of that kind of held over their head a little bit.
Now, that's before they ever go to court, would that be correct?
Yeah, they wouldn't go to court.
They can't go to court.
Yeah,
Got it. That's
he
what-
would
that's
make
my
a
question.
determination. Yeah.
That's my question, okay. Thanks.
I believe I know how it works, but my concern is, are these Vigo County residents, or are you going to allow
No, Vigo
other
County
surrounding
residents.
counties to drop people
No.
off?
No, we can't. First of all, the facility's not gonna be big enough to do that. And we have our own issues in our community that we have to deal with first. This is not gonna be, we're not for profit, we're not in the business to make money. And we're not taking people from out of county. That is not the way this is gonna be operated at all.
Yeah, and it's
Or
not for you, Myra, I guess maybe for the commissioners, I would like some understanding here, some clarity on why our commitment's more than the city when this is for the whole community, why it's not equally divided here.
Well, this conversation started about 3 months ago. Ms. Bowling called me and said that Myra had a shortfall in funding. We did have a meeting with the mayor. The mayor did make it clear to us that we received the biggest substantial chunk of public safety funding in the county and thought that we should pay for the diversion aspect of it because they did the property, the cleanup, and are also matching the $250,000 in housing. Councilman Loudermilk, I would think you should probably just give him a call if you have questions, because I don't want to speak for him. But we did have a good conversation. That's just kind of what the conclusion we came to. But I want to make it clear that the commissioners probably won't do a resolution of support until we see what you folks do. When Myra came to us, we made it clear to her that you guys are the financial arm of the county, and we would have to, get you on an agenda and have them come speak to you moving forward. I don't feel comfortable. I don't know all the details on the city side of what he had done, so if you want to shoot him a text or give him a call, I'm sure he can answer a lot better.
So you could have countered and said, well, you
We did.
received quite a
I
bit
did.
more in
I
ARPA
did.
funds
Yeah,
than us.
I did. I did that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, just to answer your question, Aaron, Andrea and I had met even before coming to Chris with the mayor. We ended up setting up our own meeting of commissioners. I'm sorry. So we had
And
set-
what if I can help you out on that is, if this conversation all happened 3 months ago, here we hear it, and it's crunch time, and then you come to
Yeah.
us. I don't like that.
I understand, we don't like it either. We had went to the mayor about.
But you have more control over that than I do.
I understand, but when certain elected officials say they promise you something and you believe them, it puts me in a really bad position.
I agree. So I just want you to understand that here it is,
And I don't want this to be contentious. I think this is a great thing for our community.
It is.
Um,
I don't disagree.
And how we get there is important, but I think we all need to work together so we can get there.
That's what we hear when we're the last ones and invited. That's
Well-
what we hear. We all need to work together. You just have to be the last ones invited.
It wasn't
that-
about being the last one invited. It was about promises being made that people didn't deliver on, Todd.
Yeah, but we didn't make a promise.
I understand that, but here we are.
We only are responsible for us, and I do appreciate the commissioners brought it to your point, is that we are the financial body of it, so. But, yeah, go ahead with I was just saying that way you walked up there. Are you good?
I have a question.
Okay.
I would just like, balance on edit, so we know, like, for the next meeting.
Yeah, it's.
And that way we have it.
She's got
Do
it
we
in
have it
here.
already?
Yeah. It's
Okay,
in
and
that,
then-
it's in this spreadsheet
Is
right
it there?
there. Right here.
Yay, there we go. And then, got it, okay.
So that would be,
That's the.
that's what it is. That's if we did it, that's
Got
what
it,
it is.
okay. And the other part of it is to, just looking in general, something that we have talked about, and I know it's not the greatest scenario how we're coming to it, but I think in all of our meetings and with ARPA, one of the big things I stressed, and I think, obviously, Councilman Loudermilk has talked about it for years, even before ARPA, is we've got to do something to get people to not end up in our jail. Our jail numbers
I
are
agree with that.
high. I'm with you. I don't like the split, but at the same time, I feel like we have to do something. And to do nothing, I don't want to have regret in that either. And I'm also, again, from different backgrounds of counseling, having a variety of options for the judges, for law enforcement, for the citizens of Terre Haute and Vigo County, I think we are going down the right path. And I want to continue moving forward on that because, again, stress the word epidemic, it's impacting us at all levels.
Yeah, I want to again stress, so our plan that we adopted this morning is a plan or a guide for us to focus on moving forward. If something changes in that plan, it could free up some money that we have made commitments to but may not come to fruition.
Yeah.
Marie, in that $4.6 million that we have left, Rachel and her team has tasked Baker Tilly on what they are doing in other communities, maybe allocating a wing or pod within the Vigo County Jail as a way to also provide some type of services to that specific group of people, maybe through ARPA. The issue may be is this is a one-time funding scenario, and we may have the opportunity to do something for a couple of years, but then where does that funding come from
Right, and
if
then
it's
we have to
successful?
sustain it.
So we have all kinds of things to navigate and discuss. But, Myra came to us about 2 weeks ago. We had a conversation with her, and we put her on the agenda.
Right, and I hope that don't take away negative on this, take away if you, we got a decision to make next week. And to me, if you can show those letters of support, that helps me out too with it, and then you can get us over the bump. I don't necessarily like to split either. I don't know that it will hang me up on it individually, but that's what we have some time to process.
We can hold it over the
Yeah,
year.
yeah.
Yeah, so, if there's not any other questions on that, we do have the, last one is, and he had to stay for the whole
Thank you,
meeting. Commissioner Switzer. Additional appropriation ordinance 2023-26 ARPA grant, culvert and draining projects.
We respectfully request to withdraw this, whatever's on your agenda.
Yep. Any other discussion on, you had to
No.
wait till the last, we wanted to withdraw.
Honestly, Wary is going to follow the same rules that every other entity is going to receive, so he is also going to come to this education seminar. We gotta figure out how to bid these big projects in a package or individually and
Right.
stuff like that, so.
So it's just a timing issue. It's
Yeah.
not being taken off the table as an issue, but it's just that, for right now, we don't need to do appropriations for it, so.
Be back.
I, at this time, is there any other new business to be addressed in front of this council? If not, I would accept a motion for adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion kept.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. At 6:30.
Oh, we gotta, do we have to sign anything?
No, we don't have anything to sign.
I have to sign my students' stuff.
Nancy's appreciative.
I didn't do it.